If you've been born and brought up in a city, it is likely that at some point in your life, you've been a bit of a mild bully, if not more, and cracked a joke at the expense of your good friend who comes from a more modest neighborhood. But what if I tell you now, forget modest neighborhoods, but even those from smaller towns could, well, in the near future, aspire to good employment opportunities and a far better lifestyle than would have been possible, say, 20 years ago. Let's see how. Hello and welcome back to Business Matters at the Hindu with me, K. Bharat Kumar. Last week, the Information Technology Industries Representative Association, Nasscom, along with Deloitte, brought out a report in which it said that there are 26 emerging destinations in India that look promising for investments by the IT sector. This compares with the 7 metropolitan regions we have right now: the National Capital Region, the Mumbai Metropolitan Region, Chennai, Kolkata, Bangalore, Hyderabad and Pune. Focusing on 26 cities for their high potential, the report examined 5 pillars for their success and noted significant improvements. One, of course, was the availability of skilled labor or talent. Second, government-led infrastructure development, the risk and regulatory environment, a burgeoning startup system, and social and living environments, all of which are vital for an industry such as the tech sector to thrive. In India, the tech industry employs 5.4 million people. We all know that the pandemic brought with it acceptance of work from home or work from remote. So the first question that comes to mind before we delve into other details is, currently, how many such people actually reside in such areas and are able to work in the tech industry? The report tells us that 11 to 15% of the workforce actually resides in Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities now. But here's the larger picture. Government data from 2021 notes that 65% of our population lives in rural areas. A Ministry of Education report in 2020 shows that about 61% colleges are located in rural areas. It is then quite natural that the Nasscom Deloitte report observes that about 60% of India's graduates in engineering, arts and science come from smaller towns. Now, why is it a good thing for companies to move away from bustling metros? The answer to that is twofold. First is the rising cost of operations. The report tells us there has been a 30 to 40% increase in talent pool cost, that is salaries, over the past 5 years. Companies have also experienced a 60 to 80% increase in real estate costs in the same period. Now juxtapose these with emerging hubs. The report tells us that talent pool costs are about 25 to 30% lower than in matured hubs. And when it comes to real estate, there is an opportunity for a 50% cost arbitrage. The second part to that answer is to do with talent acquisition and retention. The report tells us that in matured hubs, there is a saturation in terms of availability of talent, and obviously because of which there is intense competition among companies for the available talent, leading to high attrition rates. The report tells us that obviously if you move to an emerging hub instead of staying in a matured hub, all these problems may exist, but at a far significantly lower intensity. If you're wondering if all of this is potential for the future and want to know what's exactly happening on the ground, here's a nugget for you to chew on. Over the past decade, according to the Nasscom Deloitte report, the innovative ecosystem has contributed to about 9 lakh jobs, direct jobs. And if you just take the startup space, more than 7,000 startups, or 39% of all startups, are operating from such locations. And they span industries from deep tech to business process management. Now that you have a factoid to chew on, you might ask me about the potential. Here's another nugget. An artificial intelligence boom is expected across the globe and in India. Stay with me as I give you a piece of calculation as well as some inference. In a research report that it put out earlier this year, the McKinsey Global Institute found that generative AI has the potential to generate value equivalent to $2.6 trillion to $4.4 trillion in global corporate profits annually. Speaking to journalists last week in India, IBM Chairman and CEO Arvind Krishna gave us his take on these numbers. He assumed productivity increase annually at the upper end of that range that McKinsey talked about, which is $4.4 trillion. Mr. Krishna said, let's assume you need 4.4 million people to help achieve that output, which means each of those would have to account for $1 million worth of productivity increase, which itself is a very high number, but let's be conservative and assume that. Mr. Krishna reckons that India could well account for about half of that number, or about 2 million jobs. Why? because of India's young population and given the fact that the rest of the world is aging. When we talk about jobs going rural, we cannot but mention Zoho. The company is the most public face in India of taking IT jobs into rural areas. As an IT products company, Zoho is one of India's success stories. It competes in some of the spaces that Google, Microsoft and Salesforce all play in. Over the past few years, Zoho founder Sridhar Vembu has focused on setting up and nurturing a software development center in Tenkasi and other such centers. Work on the company's products happen in these centers as much as it does in its headquarters in Chennai. Mr. Vembu has said that concentration of jobs in urban areas has taken away youth from the villages. Zoho's experience has shown that the long-term impact of moving jobs back into rural areas include a rise in overall income, employment and education, and community development. According to a study, the company's rural revival initiatives have also led to women empowerment, skill building, and indirect job and wealth creation. Now, all that was good news. But if there is one thing that could trip us up as a country, what do you think that one factor could be? If your answer is skilling or employability, you're bang on. In an annual survey conducted by WeBox under the aegis of the AICTE, or the All India Council for Technical Education and the Confederation of Indian Industry, the 2023 report showed that the employability of young graduates who took a test, 3.75 lakh in total, so the employability rate is shown to be about 50% across areas such as engineering, science, arts, etc. This is better than the 46.2% seen in the previous year. That's only one way of looking at it. The other way to look at this data is to look at how high unemployability is. 50% of graduates across areas in India are unemployable. The chart on your screens shows that among engineering graduates, who are generally the most sought after in the tech industry, only 57% are employable. Imagine 43 out of every 100 engineering graduates is not employable, which is a reflection of the poor quality of instruction at many of our engineering colleges. The next graphic shows the employability rate among engineering graduates from different streams. IT, computer science, and EEE, or electronics and electrical engineering, all of these three take the cake here. But even among such graduates, the unemployability rate is in the 35 to 40% range. Before we wind down this episode, here are a couple of interesting tidbits in our Did You Know section. We sourced this from the India Scaling report that we referred to earlier in this episode. A couple of interesting points came out from that report. One, Rajasthan secured the top spot as a state with the highest availability of candidates competent with computer skills. The state also has the highest female employability percentage at about 53.6%. But the top 5 states where maximum hiring activity is forecasted are Maharashtra, Karnataka, Delhi NCR, Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh. Rajasthan is not in this list. So, the Nasscom Deloitte report does hold water. One, of course, is the promise shown by these emerging hubs, 26 of them. The other is that as a country, we do need to move development to where the people are. They should not need to move to urban centers. The other interesting nugget from this report is that close to 90% of the 3.75 lakh test takers own a computer at home. Now we come to our quiz section. The question last week was, how many Earth days count for one lunar day? Many of our viewers got it right in the comment section. 14 Earth days count for one lunar day. Now it is night time in that part of the moon where the lander and rover of the Chandrayaan-3 mission are currently located. ISRO officials say that these gadgets have been put to sleep and that they can only hope that they will come back to life when the sun's rays hit them again on September 22nd. Now let's come to this week's question. As per the WeBox National Employability Test, which state showed the highest employability among test takers? This is across all educational courses, not just engineering. Mind you, this comes from the 2023 report. That's all we have for you now, folks. But before we go away, we do want to ask you, are you from a rural background? What has your experience been? Tell us about it in the comment section. We'd love to know. And if you're watching this on YouTube, do not forget to like, share, subscribe, and importantly, click on the bell icon. Till we meet again, have a lovely week ahead.